The Subaru Outback seems like it has it all. Great handling capabilities, phenomenal off-road performance, solid levels of comfort, and an abundance of practicality. However, all is not as good as it seems, as even though it excels in some, the Subaru Outback falls short in quite a lot of segments too. It isn't powerful enough, the interior leaves a lot to be desired, and many other problems compromise this otherwise great vehicle. Today, we'll see if these compromises might be a deal breaker for you, so stay tuned as we check out 5 reasons why you should not buy the Subaru Outback. Number 5. Pathetic engines. Subaru has been embraced as a legend of the automotive industry because of its incredible performance, especially after the 2-decade-long run of the Subaru Impreza WRX and WRX STI. Unfortunately, in the past few years, Subaru has dropped the ball big time in terms of performance, and their recent models have been amongst the worst ones in this regard throughout the entire segment. The Subaru Outback is no exception, as its base engine leaves a lot to be desired. The 2.5-liter naturally aspirated Boxer 4 pushes out some odd 185 horsepower, which is just pathetic from an engine of this size, and virtually other manufacturers such as Toyota has managed to squeeze a lot more horsepower from their equivalent engines. Seriously, the only manufacturer that seems to be doing a worse job in terms of horsepower per liter these days is Mazda. However, they're doing that to drastically increase fuel economy. The fuel economy of the naturally aspirated CX-5 with a 6-speed auto and the Outback is practically identical. Even though the Outback uses a CVT, is almost 400 pounds lighter than the CX-50, and is also much more aerodynamic. On the other hand, the Outback can only do 2 mpg more than a turbocharged CX-50 with almost 100 horsepower more. Now sure, the Outback's high-end trim levels are outfitted with a 2.4 turbocharged Boxer 4 borrowed from the WRX. However, even that engine isn't perfect, pushing out just 260 horsepower. A 20-year-old Impreza WRX Bug-Eye can practically match that, which is just terrible. To add salt to the wound, Subaru has fitted the Outback with a CVT gearbox, meaning you can also kiss any form of engagement when it comes to the power band. Plus, better bring some ear pro when driving it because the engine will keep screaming at you constantly at higher speeds. Number 4. Subpar interior. Another key issue that we have with the Subaru Outback is how incredibly bad its interior is. Starting with the quality, sure, the Outback isn't terrible in this regard, but it is outshined by its competitors like the Hyundai Santa Fe or the Honda Pilot. Everything here seems to have been built to last, sure, but there hasn't been any thought to make it feel pleasant. There are a lot of plastics everywhere, the seats aren't particularly engaging nor are they that comfortable, and the whole cabin can be encapsulated with just one word: mediocre. This is all amplified by the lack of thought concerning ergonomics. The layout of the interior is abysmal, with a lot of unnecessary buttons present and a lot of necessary physical controls being absent. The best example is the climate control. Instead of being bound to a dial, they're a combination of stupid buttons and are also partially controlled by the infotainment. In addition, the positioning of the audio controls is also abysmal, as well as the fact that the heated seats, amongst many other frequently used commands, are all transferred to the infotainment screen. Frankly, this has been a trend amongst car manufacturers, as it lowers production costs and time. Plus, the infotainment screens can be done well, with Tesla being the best example of this, which brings us to the next problem. Number 3. Technology lags behind the competition. You see, if the infotainment was a little bit better, we wouldn't give the Outback such a hard time. However, it is by far amongst the worst infotainment systems on the market now, which is frankly true for all Subarus. The problem with the infotainment isn't that it's unresponsive. It works okay in that regard. No, the problem is in the fact that the layout of the infotainment system makes very little sense. You'll constantly struggle and stumble around until you've found what you're looking for. Plus, the overall design of it is much more early 2010s, much less mid-2020. First, the screen is integrated centrally on the dashboard, meaning that its height isn't optimal for quickly looking at it, as you must take your eyes off the road. Plus, the vertical layout is very stupid too, as it means that some of the info will be positioned very low, meaning that not only will your eyes be not focused on the road, but the road won't even be in your broader line of sight once you need to adjust something, such as for example, climate controls. It's for reasons like these that Tesla abandoned their vertical screen, which was present in the earlier versions of the Model S and Model X, in favor of a horizontal screen. That said, this isn't the only issue that concerns dated tech. You see, the Subaru Outback still comes with analog dials. Now, don't get us wrong, we love analog dials. However, when you have an infotainment screen as insufferable as this one, it's much better to have all your needed information, such as sat-nav or radio info, available directly in front of you than just 2 dials. Number 2. Very unappealing design. There's no avoiding it. The Subaru Outback is just weird in terms of design, and we're not talking about proportions and body style. We'll talk about that a little bit later. No, what we're talking about are the weird design quirks and details that make the Outback look both very outdated and very try-hard. First of all, the front end is very fussy. There's a lot of unnecessary creasing and sharpness that simply makes you feel overwhelmed. Seriously, what is the centerpiece of the front? The minuscule grille? Or maybe those headlights that look like they came from a concept car from the mid-2000s? Or maybe it's that black plastic trim that looks like a fang or a sharpened shark fin? We don't know, as there's just too much going on for us to truly understand what Subaru wanted to do with a vehicle in that regard. In addition, the side profiles aren't much better either. Again, you can see a lot of creasing and a lot of sharp edges that just try and make the side feel more athletic, which is also true for the back end. As you might see, there is a lot of try-harding from Subaru to make this vehicle more imposing than it could ever be. Some would say that they're compensating. It's a damn station wagon with a jacked-up suspension. You couldn't make it imposing even with Clint Eastwood behind its wheel. Now, don't get us wrong, we adore these overlanding station wagons, but Subaru should have just kept the styling a bit less, well, infantile and adolescent. If it were simpler and smoother, it would have done wonders for the Outback. Or maybe not, because there's another bigger issue that is rooted in the Outback. Number 1. The body style is just undesirable. Once again, we're not throwing shade at Subaru for making an off-road ready station wagon. In fact, we love the fact that they did this. Station wagons are, in our opinion, a much better alternative to SUVs and crossovers, as they have more cargo area, are much cheaper to both buy and maintain, and are more comfortable and more agile overall, all while being more economical too. And with the taller ride height of the Outback, you've also solved the issue of off-roading and clearing side curbs and potholes too. Also, just look at the pricing. The Outback, which is far larger and far more practical, competent, and better than the smaller Subaru Forester, is actually $1,000 cheaper than its compact crossover brother. However, the truth is that the market simply doesn't want these kinds of vehicles. Everybody and their mother are looking to buy a crossover SUV these days. The market for sedans and station wagons is getting narrower by the day. Now, Subaru is trying to mitigate this issue by advertising the Outback as a quote-unquote mid-size SUV, but come on, nobody's buying that. This is just a Subaru legacy wagon with a suspension kit, nothing more. As a result, if you were to buy an Outback, its resale value would plummet much faster and much more than its actual midsize rivals, making it a not-so-good proposition if you intend to sell it once the warranty runs out. That said, this makes it all better to purchase second-hand, as you'll get a fairly competent car that is drastically cheaper than its competition. In addition, even with the aforementioned issues, the Subaru Outback might be quite a good proposition if you need a family vehicle that you intend on keeping for an extended period, and that is as competent as its rivals for a fraction of the price. Of course, keep in mind the cons that we just mentioned. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.